Welcome to Stacked Tech Hiring Insights, the podcast where we'll break down what's actually happening in tech hiring. So I'm Mark Slocum, the partner and lead of our technology practice at HireWell. Each month, we'll be joined by expert recruiting guests to talk trends, real-world insights, and practical advice you can actually use. So all in a quick 10-minute episode. This month, we are joined by the one and only Matt Massucci, CEO and founder of HireWell. So let's get into it, Matt.
Thanks, Mark. I'm super excited to be the first guest.
Well, we'll see how it goes, but here we go. So awesome. Well, there is a lot to talk about as we will, continue to dive in over the course of the year, but there is no more pressing topic in the world right now, at least on the tech front, than AI and what it is doing to all aspects of the working world, not just the recruiting space, but we'll stick mostly to the recruiting world. And at HireWell, we've been doing some pretty interesting sort of growth activity and acquisitions in recent months. And that is what I wanted to start off with Matt and have him talk a little bit about one of our most recent acquisitions and some of the exciting things that they're doing and how we're looking to kind of grow and expand that across our great networks as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a fairly interesting run, and kind of one of our strategies over the last couple of years has been to look at, acquisitions or team moves of kind of smaller firms that we think are like-minded and share kind of the same values and sort of cultural aspect of working with clients as we do. And we did that a couple of years ago with Tom and Jen from the team at the Collective Search. Late in 2025, we did it with the team with CS Recruiting to expand into supply chain and logistics. And then, obviously what you're referring to is the most recent deal we did to bring on the Nuance Recruiting team, which we're super excited about. They're a boutique shop out of Milwaukee. I was approached by Amanda, their founder, mid Q4 of last year. And while it wasn't necessarily like top of our priority because we were sort of knee deep in the process with CS Recruiting, when I started to peel back, there was just a lot of interesting things to it. One, obviously we have a strong presence in Chicago, Milwaukee and Wisconsin is close by, but it's a very different market. And I think having people on the ground there was a huge advantage. I also like their way of engaging with teams. It was heavy solutions oriented, not just a run of the mill traditional contingent recruiting firm, but doing a lot of, recurring RPO work, embedded recruiters, things like that we have always had a key part of our business. But then the third part that was super interesting was kind of their community building aspect. Amanda and Angela, the two founders, definitely had leaned heavily into that. And they started to, heavily involved in a group called the Midwest Founders Club, where basically it allows founders of, entrepreneurs of small tech-based companies to network, interact. But it's also kind of evolved into basically a CIO meetup called SaaS Club, where they put those founders in front of, local CIOs and kind of use as an opportunity to network, mentor, kind of pitch products, ideas, and also customize for a targeted audience. So, we've got our first event in 2 weeks, I think, up in Milwaukee, which is, I think, super exciting. And it's something that we strongly believe in. We think we can expand upon, and something that just has a ton of potential.
That's great. So it's an opportunity for really any market to bring together leaders, proven leaders, aspiring founders, network, learn from one another across kind of every discipline, or what are the different sort of functions there?
Yeah. I mean, so the first event coming up is specifically for, CIOs in the manufacturing world, which, clearly the kind of the Midwest concept is a pretty diverse set of industries, but, manufacturing and industrials is a very strong sector in the Midwest. And, and so the idea is pairing up companies that are founders that are creating technology or sort of AI products within that space to be able to get in front of CIOs of these Fortune, 500, Fortune 1000 companies and talk about kind of what they're building, get real-time feedback, real-time mentoring. Obviously for the CIOs in attendance, it's an interesting opportunity, one, to mentor, but two, to really stay sort of cutting edge of who's doing what in the market. And, the beauty of it is getting these vendors to build something you actually need versus, products they think you need, right? And I think that's kind of the pain point that tends to exist when you're talking about developing product market fit for, kind of these early stage companies. So getting that real time feedback is pretty invaluable. So yeah, it's cool stuff. But I think future ones will be, financial services or fintech and other things like that, where again, just specific areas where, pretty curated audiences and kind of target lists.
That's great. I know so many of my conversations with leaders, whether it's in the talent space, HR, or, technology or just business leaders in general, is everyone's looking for ways to get engaged again back in the community, right? Like COVID spread everybody out. And then, it's been a tough market for a couple of years, but we've really seen that mindset kind of back towards growth and bringing the community back together. But people are real interested in going to 300-person large networking events. They want to have something that's a little bit more curated, a little bit more sort of vision and focus for what it is, and have some of those real conversations that you really want as you're, building out a true network and trying to find other partners in the space.
100%. And that's exactly their philosophy and sort of what I think they've done a cool job building. There's also a separate one for CFOs. I went to that 2 weeks ago. That was also in Milwaukee, where really there was no presentation. It was just an opportunity for people to share ideas. And, whether it was intended or not, the conversation went deep into kind of AI use cases and how these different CFOs and kind of heads of F&A for these organizations were utilizing it. It was, I was kind of just a fly on the wall, but it was just fascinating to hear kind of who's doing what, who some of the early adopters are, and what they're able to do. And it was interesting stuff. And I think it was definitely a positive event, kind of something where it's 3 to 5, kind of a quick hitting one, again, curated, like you mentioned. I think there are 13, 14 people in the room. So it's not overwhelming, and it's just a lot of peers and opportunity to kind of hear who else is doing what in the market.
That's great. So for those that are interested, how do they go about finding out? How do they go about signing up for one of these events?
Yeah. I mean, there's a website called the Midwest Founders Club. I will share that. We'll put that probably in the notes. I don't have the exact URL memorized yet, but yeah, I mean, we'll be including it and kind of try to, again, curate a pretty good list of folks that we think, because, while most of the events have been in, Milwaukee or the Wisconsin area, we're going to be doing more in Chicago and other kind of areas where, again, to really broaden and expand things.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And we have hire well employees across, all major markets across the country. So the goal being, replicate these across those and allow them to build their communities there in addition to just remotely. So those in our network, if you have good ideas or want to be involved in this, let us know, reach out. So it's interesting, the concept of community, right? And true partnerships right now, and having that deep network. We've really seen that come back in a huge way, over the last couple of years as, the AI bots are fighting with the AI bots and fake candidates, and, sort of the evolution of org structures changing and really going more international, even at the small to mid-sized business that we really had never seen at scale. So it's kind of a constantly evolving time right now. And I think, this is just ever present, bringing up the importance of those relationships and trusted partners and networks in the most advanced sort of technical world we've ever seen.
Yeah, it's fascinating times. I mean, you hit on 4 topics just in that little blurb, but yeah, I mean, we're seeing a lot, the importance of community and kind of getting to know people. I think that is how, business has traditionally been done forever. I think it went away for a bit during the, kind of the early days where everybody's working from home. But I think people recognize like it's really hard to build a network, get in front of people. And I think there's value of community building, in terms of like kind of the AI proliferation and kind of what it's doing to the hiring market. Yeah. I mean, we've seen this rise of fake candidates, fake profiles, people doing different things with AI to really kind of clog up the hiring process. And it's been kind of an interesting thing where we've seen an uptick in our RPO practice, where companies need additional help to kind of sit through all of it and kind of, separate the real from the not real, and the top profiles from ones that are fake. And you hear everything from either augmented profiles, fake profiles, to the rise of, people based in North Korea getting jobs at Amazon and such like that, because they're able to just be anywhere and kind of game the hiring process, which is just kind of nuts and something I never thought we'd get to in the hiring world.
Yes, we're all kind of on this ride together, figuring it out. But what I've seen on the RPO front specifically is we're figuring out with our clients at the same time. right? They have this growth period that they need to go through. They need some resources, someone they know, can trust, and embed within their process and their culture. But it probably has an end date to it at some point, right? So hiring someone, that timeline just wouldn't work out. So they've looked to us, who they know, and could help us kind of navigate, this ever evolving, sort of changing hiring landscape right now. And we love it. It's an enjoyable engagement with our clients. We help them through a key growth period, and we're constantly sort of educating ourselves on how this is evolving too. Nobody has all the answers. So that's where, that partnership really does come into play. And I think that'll continue throughout 2026 and beyond for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, that might be it for the first episode of Stacked here, Matt. Thanks for being our first guest. At this point, you are the best guest we've ever had on this show. So thanks
Yeah,
for,
well, I guess we'll see if I get invited back, but happy to, happy to be here, happy to be part of it. And, again, we'll share a little bit of information in the comments section of how, anybody interested in joining the Midwest Founders Club can do that and what some of the upcoming events look like.
Absolutely. Maybe we'll check back at the end of the year and see if everything we said came to light. All right. Thanks, Matt.
Wonderful. Thanks, Mark. Thanks for having me.